Black and white love, come on, baby. Love, no more, baby. Black and white, come on, baby. Love, no more, baby. It's black and white. Just let me go, it's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go, it's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. It's black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh. 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 It's black and white. It's black and white.
Hello everybody and welcome to Porsche Club International Sim Racing Challenge. 3 of the biggest Porsche Club communities from around the world getting together for an absolutely brilliant evening's racing here at Road Atlanta for round number 1. There is only 2 rounds and we're at the brilliant Road Atlanta for this first one. My name is Jack Oliphant and joining me for the 2 rounds will be Jack Werrell. Jack, how the devil are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Rather tired after a full day of commentary, but you know what? Back in the booth and looking forward to it. Of course, like you said, Jack, we are here at Road Atlanta for round 1 of the PCGB International Sim Racing Challenge. The last time we saw Porsches here will have more than likely been, for most of you, the PCGB Sim Racing Championship, where, of course, the fastest driver so far out at the moment is Jacob Tofts. Back to PCGB Sim Racing Championship Season 3. Jacob Tofts was the champion, so he's evidently lost no pace at all, and he's 1.5 tenths clear up at the top already. So Jacob Tofts, he knows what he's doing behind the wheel of one of these Porsches.
He does indeed, and I know full well Gavin Halls is one of the drivers who have sort of been organising this entire thing with us here at Simracersworld, our sort of go-to. He's only jumped in the session quite late on, and he's gone second as well. So Jacob, Gavin, 1 and 2 at the moment. Billy Smith and Raphael Amorim as well in 3rd and 4th. We got a whole host of brilliant drivers. 28, in fact, here for you today. They're just rounding up a quick 40-minute practice, I believe, and then we'll be going straight into some qualifying. 15 minutes worth of qualifying to set the grid for an hour-long feature race. You don't want to miss this. If this is the first time you've been tuning into Simracersworld or any of the Porsche Club content, you have joined at just the right time. let's talk about the circuit, Jack. It is absolutely sensational, isn't it? One of the most well-used circuits in sim racing and probably the world, actually. Anyway, Road Atlanta. It's got everything you could want out of a circuit, hasn't it? It's got a twisty, windy first sector, a good overtaking opportunity on the long straights for some draft, and a tough last sector to just really separate the men from the boys.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits where it does have everything, like you say, and it can play to your strengths or your weaknesses. Turn one, all about bravery. You've got to brake as late as possible, turn in not too early but not too late, grab enough curb to not unsettle the car, but enough to bring the car round before you've got this little climb up through the hill. And you've got to be careful how much curb you use on the left, the right, and then the left again. And then it's just as flat out or as close as you can get it all the way down here. Brave stuff from Jacob, a little bit of oversteer, pretty much flat out all the way through. Hard on the brakes, down a couple of pegs, and then foot back to the floor again, using all the curb you can get away with on the exit. And then heading up towards turn 6 and 7, hard on the brakes, flick it in towards the right, carry the momentum as best you can through here, and then even harder on the brakes. Use the curb you can, and then get the best exit you can, because it's all about momentum all the way down this straight. You lose a couple of miles an hour at the start, it's going to very quickly evolve into about 10 come the end of the straight. And of course the final section being downhill braking zone, so you've got to brake earlier than you think. Very good overtaking opportunity, bearing in mind, like you mentioned, Jacko, you could have draft all the way down here. Look for your braking marker on the right brake now, and then flick it in towards the left. Use all the curb you can on the entry and on the exit once again. Foot nice and early on the power. Under the bridge we go, back down the hill. Be careful not to touch that grass before you turn in, and then it's flat out and a lap of Road Atlanta completed. Really not a long lap, 1 minute 17. So these cars only circulating 10 seconds slower than the real life lap record.
Yeah, it's quite nice, really, that Jacob Toss decided to line up his flying lap there for our sort of race preview, shall we say. So, yeah, Jacob absolutely flying through there. As we said before, he's a good 10th and a half clear, really, a 117.5. Gavin Halls, Billy Smith, Raphael Amorim as well, Matt Dorrington, Jarmo Levo, Thomas Pontinen in the top 7. Then we've got Christopher Pace, Leif Peterson, Jordan Dyer in the top 10 as well. So keep an eye out for those names there, the names maybe you want to be keeping an eye out in your qualifying. Please do give a shout out for your favourite drivers. If you're here supporting someone or you want to get involved in the chat, then by do all means let us know what's cracking in the comments. And also, if you want any of the audio slightly tweaking, maybe you can't hear Jack as well, maybe the cars are too loud, X, Y, and Z, I'm not above changing just a few little tweaks before we get into the feature race as well. So please do give us your feedback on the chat function as well, wherever you're watching this from. 38.5 minutes into a 45-minute session, actually, for practice. So I said it was a 40-minute. I got that ever so slightly wrong there, but it does give us another opportunity, Jack, to maybe talk through a couple of things that we're going to be seeing tonight, specifically the car as well, the 911 GT3R. It is a souped-up version of the 911 GT3 Cup car, which is a souped-up version of the road-going 911 GT3 as well, which is already pretty much the top spec of 911s as you can get it. So this is really... you have to be quite a specialist to get the most out of this car, don't you? And that's why we're glad that we got the Porsche Club drivers here, because they are specialists. Yeah,
you do indeed. There's definitely a reason why iRacing's premier road racing series is using Porsches. One, because they are just the perfect racers car. They're so well balanced, so if you drive within your limits and within the car's limits, you can really start to find some time. As soon as you either push your limits or the car's limit just a little bit too far, it will come back and bite you. You'll end up pointing backwards or the wrong way, anything like that. So with a car like these Porsches, they are rear engine, they've got plenty of power, not too much though. They're limited to around about 550 brake horsepower, depending on the balance of performance, either issued in real life by the FIA or, of course, in the simulator by iRacing. So it's just a perfect platform for some close racing, and with everybody working with somewhat the same machinery, just very little tweaks that they, or very few tweaks that they can make to their setup really to find the time. It's all about driving it on your limits and the car's limits as well. So in theory, the race isn't settled until we see the checkered flag.
Yeah, realistically, I just want to bring up the gap here as well. If you're wondering about just how close this may well be at the end, the top 20, well, the top 19, it's pretty much the top 20, are separated by less than a second. So it is incredibly tight. Jack, we commentate on MX5 racings every so often on a Sunday, don't we? And to be honest, we're quite impressed when we see the top 12 be separated by a second. I mean, this is quite incredible. We've got drivers here from America, Finland, and the sort of Porsche Club of Great Britain as well. 3 like top level Porsche Club drivers, and they're all so similar in pace. I mean, if you look at Dieter Navala in 10th and 11th, that is less than half a tenth of a second. Then back to Ryan Parkins, who's normally out here winning races by half a second. He's half a tenth down as well. And it's just such minuscule margins. It can all come down to, especially in qualifying, come down to that draft assistance, can't it, as well? When being held up potentially like Rafael Amorim was there, who's obviously just got second place. That's why I'm focusing on him. In fact, there we go. He slows down just a touch, I think. Maybe he's going flat out. I'm not sure. But it just goes to show just how close this is going to be, basically.
Yeah, it does indeed, and it's probably the best way to almost picture a picture, quite literally, a picture together for the race. Mainly because this is when you see the drivers extending their track limits and finding where they can and can't find the time. So we'll see where the mistakes will and won't happen. We'll see where the drivers are and aren't as quick as one another. Here is Jarmo Levo through the backside of the circuit we go, and then back down the straight and heading towards a very, very heavy braking zone ahead. I think he's following the number 23 machine of Stuart Clark at the moment, just sat in front, so we'll be getting all that draft assistance in the 114. So Jarmo making the most of that and lifts off nice and early, decides it's not really worth going for anything as of yet, but with theoretically 1, maybe 2 laps of the session remaining, this is his final chance to work his way towards the top end of the order. Currently sat in 5th place, and a pit entry practice. You can't really go wrong with one of them.
I was going to say it was one of his sort of last opportunities, but remember, this is only practice. He'll be pretty pleased. He is in 5th place after all. So the top 5, Jarmo Levo is actually the top of the Finnish drivers. Then you've got Porsche Club GB stepping out in 1st and 3rd. That's Jacob Toft's, Gavin Halls. Then the Americans step in with Rafael Amorim and Billy Smith as well. So a good mix, as I said, in the top 5. A good mix all over the park, to be honest. It's going to be very interesting. Although we may speak about these drivers in their sort of representative teams and where they may come from, there is no real team. There is no team championship. I was going to say there is no real team championship. There is none, full stop. You know, it's all about sort of personal pride, this one, and there is only 2 races anyway. Obviously, this one now and next week as well. So it's just a bit of an invitational, a bit of an opportunity to get some people in and hopefully bring you some fantastic racing content as well. A minute and a half to go then of this race. I tell you what, 28 drivers we've got stepping in at the moment, and like we said before, it's looking awesome. If we look further down the field, you've got some of the drivers that you may not see in the top 20. You've got Stifel, Clark, Bow, Jones, I will attempt Villaikanen, Alto, Marston and Simpson down in the bottom end here as well. So plenty of drivers, and as we say, if you want to give a shout out to your favourites, then please do in the comments as well. We'll try and give them a read as well throughout the entire hour race, as well as obviously qualifying and everything like that. So what do we expect here, Jack, today? We're talking about the circuit, we've spoken about the cars, we've spoken about the drivers. We're expecting clean racing, aren't we, with such a high caliber of drivers out here today. We're expecting close racing. We're hopefully going to see action from start to finish, and maybe even people trying to push through the order and take advantage of some sloppy mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it can always happen no matter how good a driver you are. There's always going to be those mistakes there, and for Jacob Tofts being very confident behind the wheel of a Porsche, of course, Porsche Club GB Sim Racing Championship Season 3 champion. That's definitely a mouthful. He knows what he's doing behind the wheel, but you can never just rule out any mistakes. If you've got a car right up behind you, or there's a couple of cars in front of you slightly slower, it's so easy to make a mistake. So potentially, Jacob Tofts might not be as dominant as he is in this practice session. And don't rule out anybody just working their way through the cracks. Matt Dorrington, very familiar with these Porsches as well. So is Ryan Parkins, PCGB Sim Racing Championship champion of Season 1. So he definitely knows what he's doing as well behind the wheel of that Porsche Sport machine. Of course, no teams, but they are running the Porsche Sport livery. But we've got lots of names out, which are no stranger, not only to Simracersworld, but to the Porsches as well. So Austin Greatorex, Danny Jones, Mark Bowe, Stuart Clark, Matt Dorrington, of course, Ryan Parkins, Gavin Halls. Who else have we got? We've got a lot of drivers which are very, very familiar to being behind the wheel of these Porsches. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get a couple of names seeping their way through the cracks and working their way towards the pointy end of the field.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just tuning in, you're wondering what on earth is going on, we're just about to go into qualifying. They just had their 45-minute practice. I'm guessing the drivers leading up to it today will have done a lot more practice in the sim as well for this. Well, not that they need any more, because they're all specialists in the car. 15-minute practice, getting underway right now. We're going to check out once they've hit their first flying laps. And then we've got a 60-minute feature race as well. I've seen a lot of love in the chat for the Finns. Let's go. Navala says Puis, Pointonen for the win. Plenty of action coming in on the chat as well. So please do keep that going and make sure that you sort of try and engage in a nice, friendly manner as well and supporting all the drivers. And if you see an absolutely awesome move, then by all means call it out in the chat as well. So let's have a look at what's going on then. We're currently focusing on Ryan Parkins. Jacob Tofts is probably the driver we're going to have to focus on though, Jack, because topping that timing sheets in practice, he did about 5 or 6 laps less than the other drivers in the top 5 as well. So we know he can produce the time when it counts as well. He's a sort of driver that gets out there, knows when his car's at its peak, can get out and get flying. Well, by the looks of it, we thought we potentially were going to be all in on the same track, all in the same server together, but by the looks of it, it's solo qualifying. And that is a slightly different mindset you have to go into qualifying with, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, if you know you are going into solo qualifying, it's 15 minutes or 3 laps, so it's all down to how you can handle your own car and handle the circuit as well, because I think the track state carries over from practice, so it should be rubbered in enough to have a bit of pace behind the wheel of the car, but it's just all down to how you can control your car in clean air, because there's nobody else, not necessarily to give you the benefit of draft assistance, but there's definitely nobody there to unsettle the car. So any mistake, it's 1,000,000% on you. So it's just keep a cool head, get a banker lap in, and then work your way forward. I've noticed potentially with an iRacing update, the most recent one, you can, I think, don't really know how to describe it, but the curbs are so much louder. You can hear them rumbling away. So you can hear when cars are using all of the track limits. You've got to be careful of that as well, because I'm sure there is an X limit in there. And if you don't know what we're talking about, if you're fairly new to iRacing, an incident point is classed as an X. So if you put more than half your car over the white line or over the track limits, you get 1 X. If you lose control of your car, you get 2. And if you make heavy enough contact with another car, you get 4 X's, and there tends to be a predetermined limit, and if you reach that, whether it be for on or off tracks, enough times you've lost control or enough incidents with another vehicle, you will be disqualified. So let's hope for nothing like that, but I mean, you could read it like a book, couldn't you really? Jacob Tofts, top of the times, 6/10 clear.
Yeah, the only driver in the 17s as well. There are a few things, if you guys out there are maybe not familiar with iRacing and you have any questions, then please do ask it. Yeah, hopefully either someone in the chat will sort of update you, or we'll try our best to explain the sort of nitty-gritties of iRacing, because there is a slight difference. For instance, all drivers can go out there and use the same 15 minutes but be in their own server like we're looking at right now, which is quite interesting really, because going back to that sort of solo qualifying against group qualifying, I know Pete MacKay, who fans out there who have tuned into the Porsche Club GB broadcast that Simracersworld have given you before now will recognise the name Pete MacKay. You'll definitely recognise his voice in pretty much all racing of Porsches. He hosts a very popular podcast as well, which the name eludes me, which is quite bad. But he's a fan of iRacing solo qualifying, because one of the sort of biggest barriers in real life racing is qualifying as a group. Now, some people might say it takes an awful lot of skill to be able to qualify, you know, in a group, but realistically, if you can get the opportunity to qualify on your own, and it really separates the sort of top drivers when you're talking only when you're separated by half a tenth, then you should take that opportunity. So it's an interesting debate about which one you should go for, the realism or the ideal sort of setup that iRacing can give you. Rafael Amorim, he was second in practice. He's gone second in the qualifying as well, but he's still got 3 tenths to find to catch up to Jacob Tofts. He is, however, the only other driver to jump into the 1:17 17s, actually. So I'll bring you up the best lap times on the left-hand side. There you go. The only drivers in the 1:17s at the moment, Tofts and Amorim. Rafael getting a very sort of shaky with the curves there, maybe just trying to extract the most amount of speed and lap time he can out of this circuit. But when you are talking about minuscule amount of times, Jack. It's so easy to make a mistake because you are trying to abuse every single inch of this track with every mile an hour you can get.
Yeah, there's no I mean, there is room for error, but there's not really room for left time. You can't, you can always sort of, it's easier to lose time than to gain time, I've always thought. So if you are pushing this car to its limits, like I said earlier, it's very easy to get it wrong. So I think some of the drivers potentially just playing it safe, making sure they drive within themselves before really starting to open the taps and push forward. You can see here Rafael Amorim coming round the final corner, being careful to watch the grass on the entry and the curb on the exit. Crosses the line now. Does he yet further improve upon his time? Yes, he does. A 117.798 posted. So reels in Jacob Toft's a little bit, but not enough to take him off provisional pole. And yeah, it's definitely one of the cars that you need to drive within your limits, because if you start pushing a little bit too hard, it will really come back and bite you. Here is Billy Smith from Texas crossing the line now. Does he improve upon his time? Yes, he does. That's a 118.014. Gavin Hall's yet further improves as well, a 117.945 posted. So the top three all in the 1 minute 17 barriers. Here is Matt Dorrington, and that curb noise is absolutely terrific. Sponsored by Shark e-bikes as well. So Shark e-bikes are quite a proud sponsor of Porsche Sport, so you'll see a fair few of those logos this evening.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll see Porsche Sport in the chat as well. They absolutely love getting involved. And yeah, we did a European Porsche Cup series here on Simracersworld, and Shark e-bikes sponsored that series. And I have to say, they're not sponsoring this one. They are some top dollar e-bikes, I have to say. So there you go, Shark, a little bit of a shout out for you. Matt Dorrington, though, he's doing very well, 7th place, but I just sort of wanted to highlight him because iRacing doesn't go to enough decimal points to tell us why Levo and Dorrington are in 6th and 7th. They are dead set on each other in 300ths of a second, or however, 3 decimal places. However, that Dorrington has just decided to throw my facts out the window and gone into 6th position, just behind Pies. Sorry, I want to say Pies. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Sorry, Christopher. He's in 5th place. Crucially, Jack, this is an opportunity for the drivers to get in and pit, isn't it? Because it's a 15-minute window. A lot of the drivers are in the pits at the moment, which is why we're not seeing loads of action out on circuit, and you're seeing the sort of grade out names on the left-hand side, whereas Dorrington, Halls and Anderson, they're currently out on circuit. Halls has just got into pit. That's why his name has got into grey. They're basically changing the setup ever so slightly, and they're getting new tyres on the car as well. So the track has rubbed in a little bit more. It may have warmed up a touch. They want to get some new tyres on and try and extract that most amount of time, because just like in real life, the tyres sort of fall over a cliff after about 2 or 3 laps, don't they? They're very soft. They're very good for 2 or 3 laps, and then all of a sudden, they just can't quite get the time out of the car that they were hoping for, so they have to come in, pit, do another outlap, and then go flying again.
Yeah, of course, with the most recent update, all the GT3s have had somewhat of a tyre rework, so they don't take quite as long to warm up, and you can push them a little bit harder on the warming up laps. Yet further improvements from Matt Dorrington, a 117.928 posted. That moves him up into 4th place. And with the new tyre updates, of course, you can push slightly harder on cold tyres. They've got a slightly finer operating window, which comes slightly earlier in the tyre's life, but then the drop-off isn't so bad. So you might be able to do a couple of good laps, but then fall into a very consistent loop. As long as your driving style matches it, we could see some very consistent driving out on show today. Here is Michael Cooper-Smith with a beautiful livery aboard his Porsche. I think most commonly seen on the Dodge Vipers. But William Edward Anderson with a very striking, I think, Wonderbread livery, obviously ripped from the Talladega Nights movie. I've got to say, one of my favourite movies. It's nice to see that livery out on show. And Christopher Pace still sat there in 6th place. Billy Smith just up the road to the tune of about 100th of a second. Still watching Michael Cooper-Smith, currently in 10th place. Can he improve upon that time? If he finds 4 thousandths of a second, he will find a position. So let's see whether he can do so. No personal best sectors this time through. Crosses the line. Can he improve? No, he can't. A 118.569. So 3 tenths off what he actually needed. Here is Austin Smith, though. Austin Greatorex, pardon me.
Austin Greatorex yet to set a lap time. Now, I said before that after about 3 laps, the drivers will want to come in, change their tyres, get back out. But actually, what I think is happening, because we've seen no drivers re-emerge, is you only have 3 laps to set your time in. So, you have to be really very efficient. Austin Greatorex, I can tell you, won't be all too pleased with a 24th place, known well from the European Porsche Cup Series that we did here on Simracersworld. He's a very quick Porsche driver, as is everybody obviously in this field, but he'll be hoping to be getting a touch closer to the 117s than a 119.3. So yeah, I think that's what's happening. It's a 15-minute window where you have the opportunity to get out there and set 3 flying laps. So if you're wondering why nobody has come back out and nobody's really trying to challenge Tofts like Amorim or Halls or Dorrington, that'll be the reason why. So Greatorex here at the moment mixing it with this lower band. He's the only driver that's out on circuit at the moment. Michael Cooper-Smith, I'm pretty sure, had 1 lap left, and he's decided not to take it, which is quite interesting. So he is relatively happy with his 10th position, doesn't want to try and improve, or maybe he made a mistake in turn 1 and just decided that it wasn't improving after that. So Austin around this sort of lower end, you got Stiefel, you got Bowe, Simpson, Clark, Greatorex at the moment, although he is going green in sector 1 and 2. Jones, Alto, Velaikanen and Marston in 28th position. So Greatorex at the moment, he's coming up to the final corner. 2 green sectors to his name so far. That's a 3rd in sector 4. Let's see where he goes. Ooh, 22nd place at 118. He'll probably have 1 more flying lap to try and maybe improve on that just a touch, but maybe he'll be a driver to look out for, Joe.
Yeah, we've always got to keep an eye on these regulars, and Austin Greatorex still out and circulating. He will have another flying lap completed, and sometimes even once they have completed all 3 of their timed laps, they will still continue on. Get yeah, a little almost simulation in to how the first 3 laps will go, and that will be that lap null and void, bouncing all over the curbs, a little bit of gravel, even more grass, and 4 wheels off the ground. I think they're frosting Greatorex, so I would be incredibly surprised if that hasn't invalidated his lap, because he, I believe, exceeded track limits going through there, but 22nd place at the moment. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to work forward from here, but of course Road Atlanta, one of these circuits which is very much in the unknown. We normally see Porsche action around here, whether it be in the Porsche Cup of America or here for, of course, IMSA. We tend to see the Porsches in the GTE class, but of course GTE very quickly will no longer be a thing. It will become null and void, and GT3s will almost take the reins there. A quick pit entry practice for Austin Greatorex, but of course IMSA come here for the Petit Le Mans. If you are a fan of going sideways, Formula Drift come here as well. And if you are a bike fanatic, the AMA Superbike Championship also come to Road Atlanta as well. So there's always something going on here. And I think in between that, you've got racing schools and track days. So there's always some sort of action going on here at Road Atlanta. And it's a brilliant circuit. Like you say, there's a little bit of everything. There's elevation change. There's hairpins almost, if you count the top bit as a hairpin. There's chicanes. There's very quick left-right flicks. There's flowing corners. There's maybe not so flowing corners as well. It's just every good part of a circuit thrown into one.
Crucially, though, in terms of the next 60 minutes, there's overtaking opportunities, isn't there, realistically? Because you've got 2 heavy braking zones, you've got a draft opportunity, you've got an area where you can try and get the run on another driver through that Sector 1 as well. You know, it's going to be very, very exciting. And if you're wondering where we're off to next week, well, Road Atlanta is obviously a very iconic circuit in America. We're off to an iconic circuit in Europe next. Race number 2 will be held at Spa-de-Francorchamps, which is going to be pretty sensational as well. Another circuit that these drivers will know pretty much like the back of their hand. I'm sure most out there watching this will know pretty much everything there is to know about Spa as well. But the crucial thing is, again, there'll be overtaking opportunities there. So if you do enjoy the next hour, then please do make sure you subscribe or like or follow wherever you're watching this from, so you can tune in for the same time next week to watch the International Sim Racing Challenge Round 2 at Spa. We'll obviously remind you at the end of the session as well, but it was worth putting in there for now. 20 seconds left of this qualifying, so as I said, they did get that 15-minute slot to complete their 2 or 3 laps. They've gone and done that, so it's now just a case of a waiting game. They'll probably be off to the toilet, getting their drinks, getting themselves ready and focused, whatever they need for the next hour to try and just sort of put on the best show that they possibly can. But no one could beat Jacob Tofts. We'll be bringing you the full grid in a second as well, once it's allowing us to bring that up. And I think just as speak of the devil, Jack, take us through it.
So the grid up on your screen now. Jacob Tofts will start on the front row of the grid at 117.563 posted, and just under a tenth of a second behind is Rafael Amorim for company on row 1. Row 2 is made up of Gavin Halls and Matt Dorrington, SRW, all PCGB regulars, whichever series you've seen them in. Then it's Billy Smith and Christopher Pais. Then it's Jarno Levo and Ryan Parkins, 7th and 8th. William Anderson and Michael Cooper-Smith round out your top 10. Then it's Leif Peterson and Thomas Pointinen, 11th and 12th. The next couple of the rows of the grid will go as follows. We have Jordan Diar and Matti Nevelar, 13th and 14th. Then it's Johnny Elia and James Huth, followed by Tom Slater, Trey Drawthorne, Jan Kiskinen, Joe Stifle, and then Mark Bow and Austin Greatorex, followed by Ben Simpson and Stuart Clark. And then I think we've only got a few more rows to go. We do indeed. Danny Jones and Jyrki Aalto, followed by Harmo Valaikanen and Andy Marston, the final of your qualifiers on a 28-strong car grid. 2.6 seconds separating 28 cars.
Yeah, and a rolling start to boot as well, which will probably be a good thing, to be honest, because a standing start with this many drivers going into turn 1 can be a little bit dodgy, but hopefully everybody calms themselves down. Fingers crossed, Jack, for not only an awesome race, but a clean turn 1. This sector 1 really requires some patience and some maturity to go through the twisty, windy stuff. So please, everyone, let's keep it as clean as we can. We want all 28 drivers to make this to the end, and Tofts has gone early, and that's an absolutely mega start for Jacob Tofts. He's the first across the line, and it's a brilliant start. Rafael Amorim has a little bit more trouble with Gavin Halls just behind him. Gavin filling the mirrors, but not quite happening yet. A couple of drivers have jumped each other on the line, but by the looks of it, they've all spread themselves out quite substantially. Christopher Pais has managed to make up one position ahead of Billy Smith off the line there as well. And they've all seemed to be behaving themselves somewhat. Let's have a look at James Huth a little bit further down. He's gained 2 positions since the start of this race, and there's a little bit of damage with Jordan Dyer. I think he's lost 2 positions. He started in 13th, and the front end of that Porsche is probably telling to maybe what's happened to him. A little bit of bunching here and there, but he's got a nice gap between him and Dre's Drawhorn. Jacob Tofts leading the way nicely. Yeah, he's doing what he can to build up that gap. Only about half a second separating first and second as it stands, followed by Rafael Amorim. Then we've got Gavin Halls and Matt Dorrington just sat behind. Everybody's very equidistantly spread. We've got a bit of open air further back between 15th and 16th, Jordan Dyer and Trey Drawthorne. But best of the starters, Austin Greatorex, 5 places gained. Great start for him. Already going through the final couple of corners now. Through the chicane we go. Jacob Tofts using all the road he can. Lap 1 already ticked in the books of however many we'll get. I would guess probably about 45, 50 laps in the 1 hour race we do have today. All of the grass used by Jacob Tofts. We see that, or we saw that in practice. He's one of the only drivers that can get away with using that grass on the entry. He set the fastest lap of the race last time through, a 122.97, so great stuff from him. Here is Trey Drawthorne picking up a position. Austin Greatorex now up 6 places, so dream start for him, but he's got pressure from behind. Well, we did mention in qualifying that he probably won't be too amused with the fact that he wasn't a little bit closer to the 117s. Couldn't quite pull it out the bag when he needed to, so it's going to be very interesting to see his progression through the order. We're just having a look at Michael Cooper-Smith. I think he's going up the inside of William Edward Anderson, and not quite, sorry, I think he's actually defending from Thomas Pointinen. My apologies there. Good defensive drive there by Cooper-Smith. Managed to get away with that, and he's put a little bit of room in between himself and the driver behind, the Finn behind. Just shooting back to the front of the order, though, this gap has really closed up, Jack. All of a sudden, Amorim's not having it, is he? He's keen to try and keep on the back of the Shark e-bikes driver, and Jacob Tofts is not having it his own way. No, he's really trying to push forward is Rafael Amorim. He's still got Gavin Halls and Matt Dorrington behind, of course. I'm sure close compatriots of Jacob Tofts up at the head of affairs. There is Jordan Dyer
on the outside, I believe. No, he was on the inside in the number 2 machine. He does have James Huth behind him with Matti Navala just in front. He had a little look in towards the final corner, couldn't quite get the move done there. Still trying to manage that damage. He's lost one position from where he started. Everybody up on 2 wheels as they go through the first sector of the circuit. There is Michael Cooper-Smith once again. He's got his hands full defending from Thomas Pointonen. Through the left-hander we go, up towards turns 6 and 7. A little bit of grass kicked up in the background, but everybody starting to keep a lid on it now. I think they've realised this is a 1-hour race. Try and pick off what you can at the start, but then settle into your rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, that's crucial, isn't it? I mean, a lot of these drivers will be very used to that sort of half endurance. I mean, a lot of people might not say that an hour-long race is an endurance. It's more of a sprint, but I suppose it depends on how many endurance races you do in a season, doesn't it? But to me, an hour-long race is quite a substantial amount of time to be in the sim going at 100%. So they'll have to be relatively careful. You don't want to lose it in the first 5 minutes of any race, whether it's a 20-minute race, an hour, or a 24-hour, do you? So everybody keeping it calm for now. I think Janne Kinson is going up the inside there of Stuart Clark, I believe it was. It was indeed. So a little bit of action further down. Matti Novella right up on the back bumper of Jordan Dyer. Jordan going up the inside, I think that is. Yet Navala slightly defensive. Well, he doesn't even need to be defensive into that turn 1. Absolutely no problems at all. But Jordan clearly hoping for a little bit of an improvement. Greater X has dropped the driver behind a little bit. Yeah, he has quite significantly. And he's got James Huth ahead of him, but then crucially he's got that battle of Navala and Dyer as well to be keeping an eye on. As soon as those two start trying to overtake each other, expect obviously Greater X to be in this fight. Michael Cooper-Smith still defending, so a few of the protagonists, this is where just the close action is happening. And look at that, Cooper-Smith is going to be overtaken by Thomas Pointonen. It's been coming for a while. Jack, and there's a little bit of netcode. They've done really well to save themselves there, because that's easily spat into the wall there if Cooper-Smith wasn't too careful. Alongside a bit of side drafting here, going down to the heavy braking zone, the chicane, as Cooper-Smith forces Pointonen off the track just a touch, asserting himself there, I believe, is probably the right term.
Yeah, Thomas Pointonen, I'm sure, will be looking to make amends for that overtake, still trying to chase down Michael Cooper-Smith. Now, they've got to be careful not to battle too much, because Leif Peterson is just sat behind. Here is Pointonen again, looking to the inside on the run up towards turn 1. They're still side by side. He will end up being able to grab the apex and then eventually work his way through. Great stuff from the pair of them. No contact made, but Michael Cooper-Smith using all the road and almost a little bit more there. I think that that curb slightly unsettled the car. Austin Greater X slightly offline. Back to this battle though. We've got Matti Navala still leading Jordan Dyer, and James Huth just sat behind. But we do have Austin Greater X, like you mentioned, Jacko, waiting in the wings. If these two keep battling away, slowing each other down, Greater X could be the big winner out of this, having already gained 6 places from where he started.
Well, I think Greater X was looking for a move. That's why he was offline. And speaking of looking for a move, Jordan is looking dangerous on that inside. He just can't get the move quite done, though. I think that damage at the front end is probably hurting him a little bit. But he's very much there. He's very much causing Matti Navala a bit of trouble. We've had our first crash of the race. It is for Thomas Slater. Oh, that's absolutely good. We'll have a quick look on that, and then we'll shoot back to see what's cracking. Oh, I think that's a little bit of a touch there, isn't it? He's been turned around, but no damage, crucially. That could be really important on a recovery drive for the next hour or so.
Yeah, I think that was... I can't quite pick out who that was that made the initial contact, but not what you want. Tom Slater, of course, in the wall. There is Janne Kiskinen, trying to put the pressure on Ben Simpson in front. Back to this battle, however. Matti Navala has now lost a place to Jordan Dyer, now under ever-increasing pressure from James Huth behind. Austin Greater X still within a second of this little trio, but it looks like Jordan Dyer is trying to make good his escape here. He's managed to work his way past. He's got some clean air, so hopefully that damage won't further affect his progress. Looking back at the inside, he sold him the dummy to the outside, switched to the inside, later on the brakes, grabs the apex, and there you go, position made. Jordan Dyer up into 13th place.
It was a hell of a move, wasn't it, really, to be that late on the brakes, selling the dummy that far into the braking zone as well at the end of that straight. It's the quickest part of the circuit. I mean, it's fairly obvious, as you can imagine, because it's downhill, it's the longest straight and everything like that, so really well done to him. Here's Christopher Pies, the first little bit of action that we've had at the front of the field for a fair amount of time. And I think Billy Smith has just gone up the inside of him. However, I think Ryan Parkins is interested as well. This is Ryan Parkins trying to go around the outside of Christopher Pies, who shuts the door closed. And Jarmo Levo is the top Finn at the moment, and he's hoping to make it a slightly higher, maybe a touch closer to the top 5. The top 3 have checked out somewhat. Jacob Toffs, Raphael Amorim, Gavin Halls. Then you got a 2.3 second gap back to Matt Dorrington. And then you've got a fair gap between himself and Smith in this battle as well. So really the top 3 running away with it at the moment. There's about 3 or 4 tenths in it. And I think they're just measuring each other up here. Have a look at this, Jack, because Amorim knows Toffs has ultimate pace. So I think Amorim's just biding his time, just making sure that he's within striking distance, maybe when it comes to the last 10 minutes of this race. I mean, having said that, I've said that a lot before in Porsche racing, and they just prove me wrong every time and just go for the move. But, you know, I think that's what Amorim's probably thinking.
Yeah, we've had an issue for Billy Smith as well. He went off the road. He's lost a couple of positions. He was sat behind Jarmo Levo. So let's see what happened here. He's actually sat in front of Christopher Pies Christopher Pays, and he's just lost the rear and ends up heading towards the wall. Grabs first just in time and pulls away from the wall. But from what will have been 5th place, now right the way down the order into 16th place now. Now looking at James Huth, looking to try and work his way past Jordan Dyer. Oh, sorry, he's under pressure from Matti Navala. So Matti Navala lost 2 places. Of course, he's lost out to Jordan Dyer. He's lost out to James Huth. James Huth on the defensive driving style at the moment. Austin Greatorex trying to work his way in front. And look at that, up the inside goes Ryan Parkins on Christopher Pays. He's managed to make it work for the moment. Is there still an overlap? Yes, there is. Heading in towards turn 3, Ryan Parkins will have the inside, the preferred line. And there you go, position made for Ryan Parkins. He will have to do a little bit of defending, I think, to keep that position. But Christopher Pays, he's got to keep an eye on that rearview mirror, because Jarmo Levo has been there all race and will remain so until something changes.
Yeah, I think that first corner, the move is on, isn't it? And if you do manage to get a full car late ahead of the driver you're overtaking, then the move is pretty much yours, because it's the right-hand apex, which is turn number 2 realistically. That is the most important one. If you secure the apex for turn number 2, you've pretty much got the move made. But it is such a brave move to go up the inside of turn 1. You really have to trust the driver's not going to turn in, because it's a high-speed apex. But we'll speak about that a little bit later, because Christopher Pies, he's got the draft, he's got the inside. Does he have the position? That's the question. Oh, Ryan Parkins holding it around the outside. Pies wasn't expecting that, but look at this, he's still got the overlap. Using the curb on the left-hand side, going into the last corner. It's a good run by Pies, but Parkins has just kept his nose right where he needs to. But hello, Levo.
Yeah, so it's all hotting up here in towards turn 1. It's still Parkins leading, Pays leading Levo. Levo just sat behind, waiting in the wings for something to happen, but Pays is really starting to put the pressure on Parkins at the moment. Parkins using all the curb once again and still pushing forward without too much of an issue. He's got to keep an eye on that rear view mirror, but as long as Levo is more focused on catching Pays, and Parkins sees that, he just needs to focus on working his way even deeper in towards that clean air, because they could potentially start to slow each other down behind him. But Ryan Parkins, he knows what he's doing behind the wheel. Of course, season 1 of the PCGB Sim Racing Championship champion, so he knows exactly what he's doing. And in this case, I think potentially he knows all about this draft assistance. He will hug the left-hand side of the road, or do the best he can. Brake lights from Christopher Pays, I think, getting a little too close for his own comfort, but they're still side by side now, heading down in towards the chicane. Nice and easy move. I pretty much saw that since they joined the straight. But with us only being 12 minutes into this race, next lap comes by, I'm assuming Ryan Parkins will do the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, Parkins obviously, Pete MacKay knows him very well, and he always says that he's much one of the calmest drivers around. He won't be phased at all. He's just efficiency personified, and that move personifies efficiency. Brilliant up the inside. Crucially, will he have the right-hand apex ahead of Christopher? Yes, he does as well. So Parkins straight back at it, not phased at all, knew exactly where he'd be faster, and just slotted himself at the inside. But crucially, Jack, I think this is brilliant racing respect from all the drivers at the moment, isn't it? Because there have been moves that have been a little brave. There have been moves that have been sent from quite far back at slightly risque positions. but everybody's got the trust in each other to get that move done, so it's really nice to see. Billy Smith has slipped down to 15th. He's now ahead of Austin Greatorex, sorry. And Billy's we know he's got the good pace, so maybe this will work to Austin's advantage, because look at this. Billy Smith goes ahead of Matti Navala, just out of shot, apologies. But that could really upset Navala's run. Greatorex could have an opportunity to get through. He needs to follow Billy Smith as best he can. He's hunkered up behind Navala here because he knows Navala is going to be forcing inside. And Greatorex looks to make it 3 wide. Down at the end of the straight, it's brave. Is it silly? Is it stupid? No, he just comes out of it. And I had a heartbreaking moment there. I saw 3 cars in my mind's eye just going straight on, Jack. Luckily, we didn't see it.
Yeah, somehow they didn't really manage to make any contact, but they still continue on without too much of an issue. Austin Greatorex still in 16th place, but he's looking to make it 15th. Up the inside he goes. His teammate did it just a few laps ago, and he follows suit. Up into 15th place goes Austin Greatorex. 7 places gained from where he started. Billy Smith looking to make amends from that earlier incident as well, of course. But the next target for Austin Greatorex will indeed be Billy Smith, just a little further up the road. Only a second separating the pair of them. Up the road we have William Edward Anderson getting very close to the coattails of the car in front, but he is under ever-increasing pressure from Michael Cooper-Smith behind, and then they've also got Leif Peterson just about hanging on to the wisps of draft as well, so this could very quickly evolve from a 2-car battle into a 4-car battle if it keeps going the way it is, and we're already 14 minutes into this race. Very shortly we'll make it 15 minutes into the race.
It's, yeah, flown by. Oh, little tap at the backside as we come back to Christopher Pies and Ryan Parkins. Parkins getting away with it, whereas Christopher coming out of that. Levo's not left just yet, has he? He's really trying to make sure he's there to take advantage. But it appears to me, Jack, he doesn't quite have that extra 2/10 or extra 1/10 of a second that the other drivers have, even when they're battling a little bit. I don't know whether Levo's just, leaving something in the locker, essentially, if you pardon the pun, or if he, sort of just thinks, I'm just going to sit here and wait because it looks like there's a crash about to happen, and he just wants to take advantage, and then he can get the pace done and dusted when he needs to.
Yeah, I think potentially I lost a little bit of connection halfway through that, hence why I stopped very quickly, because everything just disappeared. I didn't really know what I was talking about. Very sideways on the exit of the corner there was Gavin Halls and Raphael Amorim. So Jacob Toft still leading the way, 1.7 seconds to the good over his fellow PCGB compatriot of Gavin Halls. Raphael Amorim, the highest placed American as it stands at the moment, in 3rd place, then followed by Matt Dorrington and Ryan Parkins. Ryan Parkins has gained 3 places from where he started, but all that could come undone because he's still got Christopher Page just sat behind, with Jarmo Levo just behind him as well. And we've also got Thomas Pointonen on the way. He's got a little bit of free air behind, so he can focus fully forward to catching that lead battle. Michael Cooper-Smith and William Edward Anderson trading places just a few moments ago. Here is Gavin Halls overtaking Raphael Amorim. So Raphael on the very far left, Gavin Halls on the very far right, round the outside. Brilliant move from Gavin Halls, very bold, very brave, but he made it work. Yeah,
that was an absolutely stunning move there. I'm glad we cut to that replay. I'm going to be pretty sure we're going to be glad we cut to this battle as well, because William Edward Anderson fighting against Michael Cooper-Smith, but then Leif Peterson as well, and there's just battles everywhere now. Matti Navala is about to be overtaken potentially by Johnny Elia as well, so Navala is just bleeding positions at this rate. Billy Smith and Austin Greatorex are fighting, they're hunting down James Hoop. At the front we got Ryan Parkins, Christopher Pies. That gap is closed back up. Matt Dorrington, pretty much in no man's land at the moment, just enjoying himself it seems, with 8.7 seconds behind Raphael Amorim. And really, we can all just take a little bit of a breath after this first 15 minutes and just appreciate what we've been seeing and hope that it continues as well, because there's battles that are just forming nicely all over the park. Speaking of park, Ryan Parkins is in 5th place, but Christopher Pies is just not having any of it, is he? He's just, every single opportunity, every time we cut back to this battle, Pies is filling the mirrors and looking at the inside, outside, wherever he can. He'd probably jump over the top of him if he could get all 4 wheels off the ground to try and get past Parkins.
Yeah, I wouldn't really put it past him if I'm honest, because we've seen a lot of cars going up onto 2 wheels, so what's another 2 really going to change if I'm honest? But here is Ryan Parkins, still under pressure from Christopher Page, and you can see the gap really fluctuates between a tenth of a second up to about 6/10 of a second. Jarno Levo still just sat behind. Back to this battle. However, we've still got Jordan Dyer sat trying to catch up to William Edward Anderson and Leif Peterson, while slowly coming under yet further pressure from James Huth and Billy Smith just sat behind as well. And Austin Greatorex has worked his way forward, not really under too much pressure behind. He's just chasing down Billy Smith now. So every time there's a sort of 3 or 4 cars battling, you've then got a couple of cars in the middle of nowhere, and then you get back to another little battle, then you get back to another couple of cars in the middle of nowhere, and then you get back to another battle. So there's a pattern starting to emerge, but somebody who is just going further and further up the road is Jacob Toft, 1.8 seconds to the good over Gavin Hall, so he's still under ever-increasing pressure from Raphael Amorim.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we saw Gavin Hall's overtake Amorim, didn't we? If we cut back to it, you could maybe remember that move. And that just worked in Jacob Toft's favour, wasn't it? And obviously Toft and Gavin Hall, both Porsche Club GB members, shall we say. They're sort of representing the GB side of Porsche Club today. So they're sort of teammates, sort of not, obviously. It's a little bit of pride here and there, isn't there, and all that sort of thing. So Hall's really helping Tofts out. Amorim is sort of the meat in the sandwich, really. Tofts, Hall's, Dorrington and Parkins, all Porsche Club GB members. Amorim, obviously part of the USA crew. He's in 3rd place. And then you got Jarmo Levo. Oh, actually, hello. I think we've had an off for Ryan Parkins as we've been talking. And Levo's about to jump into 6th position. And that sandwich has just been dropped on the floor and all mixed all up.
Yes, it has indeed. So the battle has really changed its complexion now. We'll get to watch it back. So there is Christopher there is Christopher Pays, and Ryan Parkins just running really, really wide there. So it's not really ideal for him. All he's got to do is work forward again once again. But there he is, runs wide, a little flick of oversteer, gets the moment collected up quite nicely. But all that hard work has come undone. And Jarmo Levo and Christopher Pays now sat in front of him.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's a bit of a weird thing to say it's nice to see, but it's quite nice to see that if there was an incident, it wasn't obviously contact between 2 drivers. Parkins will know full well that mistake was not his normal character. As I said before, Peter MacKay regards him as a very efficient driver, not so efficient on the curves that time round, but he'll learn from that. Maybe the tyres slightly going off, maybe, I'm not entirely sure, it's difficult to say, isn't it? But I think just a human error, potentially. Parkins, though, will be straight back on it. He'll be trying to chase down Jarmo Levo, but Christopher Pays, he spent so long trying to get past Parkins. Well, he's past him now. He has to take every opportunity he can to try and extend that gap. Johnny Elliott has had an incident. This is a lot further down. He's in 25th position, and that's why. Now, Jack, that's sort of the classic Porsche incident, isn't it, really? It's an over-rotation of the rear end as Ryan Parkins goes past Jarmo Levo, and I have absolutely no idea why. Jarmo Levo went off track, apparently. So Parkins gets past Jarmo, he's back into 6th place, and Hayes will not be very happy about that, because all of a sudden he had a buffer between himself and Parkins, and that buffer's just fallen off the circuit.
Yes, it has indeed. So I'm assuming he just runs slightly wide on the exit here, grabs the apex, doesn't use too much curb, and yeah, as soon as he touches that grass, is all the momentum lost at the start of the straight, which is only going to extend towards the latter stages of the straight. Ryan Parkins, like you say, back up into 6th place, but he's got 1.2 seconds to find if he wants to catch on to the tail end of Christopher Pays. All that to look forward to. Austin Greatorex working his way past Billy Smith and William Edward Anderson, I think potentially because they've both had an incident. Billy Smith has returned to the pit lane. William Edward Anderson has done so as well, so potentially an incident between the pair of them.
I'm attempting to find what it is. It's Billy Smith at the inside of William Anderson on the final corner, and it just ran too quickly, and that's a huge hit into the pit wall. And I tell you what, Jack, it's a brave move to try and go up the inside. We'll go have another look at that. It's a very brave move to go up the inside of someone at the final corner, isn't it? It's extremely high pace. There's realistically not room for 2 drivers. I was surprised they managed to get this far. Anderson is on the ragged edge. He doesn't have any more room. Billy Smith just takes too much speed in and anticipates that maybe Anderson has more room to go on the outside than he did. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, it is indeed. It's easily done. It's a very perceptive corner. It does tighten up towards the apex, but I think not even being halfway in this race, we know there are better overtaking opportunities. He could have just very slightly grazed the brake or lifted off, but to still carry that momentum down towards turn 1 and get the position made there, because we know that's a lot of the PCGB guys, their favourite overtaking opportunity. We've seen it from Ryan Parkins, we've seen it from Matt Dorrington, we've seen it from Austin Greatorex, who is now up 9 places from where he started. The next target for him is James, who's not too far up the road. He's got all this to worry about behind him, however. We've got Trey Drawthorne and Matti Navala just up the road, as well as Joseph Stifle a little bit further up the road as well. So not massive gaps between everybody. Here is, of course, Matti Navala, the meat in the sandwich at this point. Trey Drawthorne behind, Joe Stifle in front. And then it is then Austin Greatorex just a little bit further up the road. But everybody's slowly starting to build up these little comfort gaps. Nothing major going on. Here is Tumas Pointonen, currently sat there in 8th place. No real bother from anybody around. 5.4 seconds behind, 1.4 seconds in front. So he can just chill out, get in a rhythm and see where the race will take him. Still over half of the race to go.
Yeah, well, the reason I highlight Thomas Pointonen here, because I've seen a big shout in the YouTube chat, Jack, and I wanted to share it with you and the ladies and gentlemen at home. A person in the YouTube chat has said Thomas will pass these 3 drivers. Mark my words, the 3 drivers he's talking about, Pies, Parkins and Levo. So that's a big prediction. I mean, we've got nearly 40 minutes or 35 minutes left. You can see Pointonen in the background there, but that is a huge call. And to be fair, at the end of the race, if you get it right, and I will try remember, but if you get it right, please do call it out, because that is a hell of a prediction if you're getting it. So there you go, Thomas. The gauntlet has been thrown down. You've got to get yourself up to these 3 drivers that have been battling non-stop, haven't they, Jack? It's been pretty exhausting to even watch, and it's been thrilling, don't get me wrong, but it must be exhausting from their perspective to be racing in as well, but it's exactly what they signed up for.
Yeah, it is indeed, and Thomas Pointonen, he's no stranger to motorsport. He's raced in karting, rallycross, ice racing, endurance racing, sprint races, and in 2016 he won the V1600 Finnish Championship, and in 2021, so this year, he was a Porsche Junior racer for Relar Racing and won the Porsche Sprint Challenge as well. So he's really no stranger to Porsche Motorsport, and he will continue to work his way forward. And apparently, he will have more positions to be made up the road as well. And it doesn't surprise me really, because there is Pace, Parkins just behind, Levo just behind him, and Pointonen, visually you can now see he is getting closer. Here is Jordan Dyer, who was looking up the inside there of Michael Cooper-Smith, and I potentially can almost forecast a position change in the next couple of laps.
I think Jordan Dyer's doing particularly well here, because obviously that front end of the Porsche, we know iRacing damage models, don't we, Jack? And although there is updates to them every single time, if you get it, like in the MX-5 for instance, if you get a touch of damage, and it could be a 3-mile-an-hour incident, it can hurt you massively on the straights, can't it? And that front bumper, that front end, is just, the car's not going to turn in as well. It's not going to run in a straight line as well either. So very impressed. Christopher Pies, he's got Parkins for company yet again. It didn't last long, his breath of fresh air, shall we say. And Parkins trying to go around the outside of the chicane. And I think we may have saw that earlier on. Pies this time closes the door nicely as well. Maybe he's getting a little bit more aggressive. Pointonen, he's within a second of Jarmo Levo, and last time I looked, it was 2.5 seconds about 10 minutes ago, so he is closing up rather drastically. And it's thanks to the fact that obviously some of these drivers keep throwing it off the circuit, but I don't think that will continue, because that is a very rare error that we saw from Parkins and Levo. Pays holding them off for now, and the thing is, as soon as one of these drivers gets ahead, Jack, I don't think any of them are quite quick enough to really pull a gap, especially when the other drivers have the draft assistance. That's slightly wide there by Pays. We could see a position change if Parkins gets his foot down. No, maybe not.
Yeah, the driver I had my money on was Austin Greatorex. He was up 9 positions, but he's had a little bit of an incident. He says he's had a crash as well, so potentially a knock with another car or the wall. He lost 4 positions because of it, but he is still out and circulating no matter what the circumstances. Very quickly closing up on the halfway point in this race, looking at Christopher Pace with Ryan Parkins for company. Jarmo Levo's been there or thereabouts throughout the race, just waiting for potentially an incident with the cars in front that he can really make the most of. Ryan Parkins getting closer and closer and closer, looks to the inside, later on the brakes. Can he get the position made this time through? They're still side by side through the left. Through the right, Ryan Parkins will look for the cutback. And will he get it? Yes, he will. They're side by side under the bridge. Ryan Parkins gets the position made. Christopher Pies now under pressure from the car behind. That's Jarmo Levo side by side through the final corner. We said just a couple of laps ago, you don't want to do that. They get very, very close. But because of that, they've both lost time. Ryan Parkins, he's got the position made. He's got some fresh air. But what he has done has pretty much left them to their, the pair of them to the hounds now, because Christopher Pace, Jarmo Levo, under pressure from Thomas Pointonen. What did we say? And I'm not sure who it was in chat, but you're pretty bob on with that one, because Pointonen, he's about to pick off Levo, and then after that he's got Pace, and then after that he's got Parkins, so he's really working forward now.
Well, I think it's the same user actually commented in the chat as well. Apparently, Pointonen only started training for this in the 40-minute or 45-minute practice session that they put up just before, well, pretty much while we were live. So, yeah, he's only improving, and now he's onto the back. He's onto this draft-assisted area. Basically, if you're within a second, you get a nice bit of draft. The closer you are, obviously, the thinner the air and the quicker you can potentially get. And this is his opportunity. Now, Levo, we said, well, you said, Jack, that him and Pies going side by side into turn one is obviously not something you want to do. We saw that earlier on with Billy Smith. And I think Levo, unlike Billy Smith, came off the throttle a touch because he blended in behind Pies before we even got to turn one, didn't he? And that is an entrance into the pits by Thomas Pointonen. Didn't fancy getting involved in it. Didn't fancy getting involved. Maybe he's coming in. I'm not entirely sure if the drivers do need to come in to take a mandatory pit stop, or if it's for fuel, or if it's for tyres. I doubt it will be for tyres. But we'll keep an eye on Pointonen here. Maybe the amount of time he's going to be in the pits for. I don't suspect it's going to be anything, too bad. We're just waiting to see if his car elevates, and then we'll see if the tyres are coming on. But I think it's just going to be for fuel, Jack.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why it'd be for tyres. I think in the temperatures that we're at the moment, there's no real need to take tyres. I think if we just have a quick look, I'll have a look on mine, see what the track temperature is. The track temperature is 78 Fahrenheit and up onto the tyres for some reason. You'd have thought you'd be able to make the tyres last at the very least an hour, potentially 2 hours out of a set of tyres here. Fuel I can understand, but tyres not at all. Here is Joe Stifle on the inside of your screen, loses out there to Matti Navala. Great move from Matti Navala. But here is Gavin Halls coming under pressure now from Rafael Amorim. We saw the overtake a few laps ago, and now once again he's coming under more and more and even more pressure from Rafael Amorim. And I still can't understand why we've had a couple of drivers pull into the pit lane this early on. I can understand maybe strategy-wise it'd work, but definitely not for tyres.
Well, if it's a case of it's almost mandatory or the fuel maybe doesn't last, maybe if someone could let us know in the chat. I know Porsche Sport, I know you're watching this, obviously, with a fair few drivers, including Gavin Halls, I believe, or Jacob Toft as well. Please do let us know maybe what the situation is with that, with the tyres, because there is opportunity. I do this an awful lot. It's one of my biggest pet peeves with iRacing. You have to select during the race whether you want the tyres off. Which I said that really rather terribly for a commentator, but basically the automatic response for iRacing, if you come into the pits, will be to change your tyres. So during the race, you have to tell iRacing, I don't want my tyres changed. And if you forget to do that during the race, because you can't do it before, if you forget to do that during the race, iRacing will just do it whether you want it or not. And it can cause you to sit in the pits for another 40 seconds. I mean, I'm just looking at it. Thomas Pointonen's been in the pits for 1 minute and 20 seconds. Austin Greatorex was only in there for 50 seconds. So, it's a huge difference that you're potentially losing out on as Gavin Halls peels into the pits now. Parkins is in. Pies is in as well. So, yeah, that's a huge difference. And I think it may be just a mistake from Pointonen, or he knows something that everybody else doesn't. And in which case, it'll be extremely exciting to watch the comeback.
Yeah, I can understand that, of course, you do gain a little bit of time back. Everybody around the circuit last time through, Jacob Toft to 118 and everybody else falling into the 119s or 120s. So I think really with a fresh set of tyres, you can only do 16s, 17s at the very quickest. So is it really worth it? A second a lap quicker throughout the rest of the race. If he's within 30 seconds of the leader, I can 100% understand that, but he's not. He's within 1 minute and 30 seconds of the leader. So
Leader does have
I'm not
to pit,
100%
though.
sure. Yeah, leader does have to pit.
Here
So
he is.
Jacob Toft into the pit lane this time through. And if he's in the pit lane for 50 seconds, that should bring it down to about a 40-second lead, something like that. So I think it'll be tight, but if I'm honest, tyres isn't really the right call for me.
Well, crucially as well, if we were in a time session, you might think, oh, that is an opportunity. But you have to catch up to drivers, and then you have to overtake those drivers, don't you? And still be a second quicker than everybody else. Here's Christopher Pies. I think that's going through on a back market. It's a little bit difficult, but he's behind Ryan Parkins, but only just. Obviously, they pitted at pretty much the same time. Parkins was ahead of Pies, and that is still the case for now. But crucially, they have closed that gap. So somebody in the chat said that this battle between Parkins and Pies is giving them anxiety. Carry that anxiety on for the next half an hour. Just get used to it, because it's what we're going to be experiencing. Jacob Toft is out of the pit lane, and he's still in the race lead quite substantially. He's got 1.6 seconds ahead of Raphael Amorim, who's gotten ahead of Gavin Halls by a fair few seconds as well. Matt Dorrington's out in 4th place. Matty Navala is in the pit lane, so he will drop behind Parkins and Pace. And then Levo right in the background there, isn't he? He's really dropped off from these two drivers. The pit lane hasn't been kind to him at all. It crucially hasn't been kind for Poynton and Eva, who is in 17th position, and realistically with the drivers in the pits, he's only going to get into about 15th place. So it's going to be a big old job for Poynton to come back through and try and get anywhere near the likes of Parkins and Pies, which is where the battle he was in before. And apparently Jack Wells' fire alarm is going off at the moment, so he's just going to be back in a couple of seconds. I was wondering where he disappeared off to, but that is where he is. So as Pies tries to hunt down Parkins, if you want to have a look at the gap between a couple of the other drivers, Dorrington is a full 11.8 seconds ahead of Parkins. This little battle here, he's in a blissful isolation at the moment. He's 3 odd seconds behind Gavin Halls, so he's not really troubling Halls or the top 3. He's just enjoying himself in 4th place, and to be honest, he probably would actually appreciate a little bit of a battle and an opportunity to get his elbows out sort of thing. But, you know, if you're in 4th place on a grid that is this tight and this high level, I would take 4th place and being quiet every day of the week. Pies trying to fill the mirrors then of Parkins for now, and I believe, have we got Jack Well back with us? No, I thought I heard him in my ears there, unfortunately.
Yes, you do.
Oh, there we go, yeah. There we go, back on. Is your fire alarm stopped going off, Jack?
Yes, thankfully it has. I think he was just getting so excited with all this brilliant action we've got going on. It was, thankfully, I tend to mute my mic in between transmissions to prevent any further background noise, whether it be I'm shuffling notes or anything like that. So, thankfully, I think that saved anybody watching, and yourself, of course, any ear-splitting fire alarm notes coming through my mic. But if I'm honest, I think it had a point. It's absolutely brilliant action out on circuit. Ryan Parkins and Christopher Pies still battling away, nose to tail at the moment. Down the straight we go once again, past the DRS boards, and then down towards the quick left, right, left. So turns 10 and 10A. Through the left of 10, through the right of 10A, and then over 11 and 12. Here is Raphael Amorim round the outside. Not sure when the overtake happened. I think potentially just in the pit lane. That was great stuff from Raphael Amorim. Then if he's managed to work that position off strategy, Raphael Amorim back up into 2nd place. But we now know that Gavin Halls has got the speed and potential to pass Raphael. And Jacob Toft has extended that lead quite substantially, 4.6 seconds to the good now.
Thomas Poynton, well, he's given us something to watch, hasn't he? Let's face it. I mean, not that there wasn't enough going on already. This is a battle between Trey Storhorn, Austin Greatorex, Joe Stifle, and Thomas Poynton. Poynton, the only driver to be over a minute in the pit, held up as well. So it's not been to his advantage. He's lost about 10 positions on where he was. Greatorex going side by side with Drawhorn. And I tell you what, that's a great bit of driving, a good bit of racing respect as well. Greater X up into 12th position. That means 10 positions gained for Greater X, even though he had that little off earlier on. Christopher Pies and Ryan Parkins, we've cut to it at the perfect time as they go down towards the braking area. Pies on the inside is going to have the position. Last of the late breakers. Parkins is going to try and prove me wrong as he tries to send it around the outside. He's going to have the apex for 10B, to be fair, but as they go over the crest towards 11, it is Christopher Pies who has that position done and dusted for now. But we've seen this before. Pies made the overtake on Parkins. Parkins got the run into the last corner, and he's doing exactly the same thing here, Jack. But no, he backs out of it this time. And that was lucky, because I think my excitement would have got the better of me.
Yeah, he nearly got that position back once again. Somehow had the foresight just to back out of it just in time as well. So great stuff. Forced wide there is, I think that's actually Joe Stifle that has been pushed wide. So Thomas Pointonen just helping Joe Stifle towards the outside of the circuit. Not exactly what we want to see, but that's just really, really close racing.
Late on the brakes there, and I'll tell you what, those new tyres may have actually helped him going through 10A there, but he definitely didn't help Stifle an awful lot after that, did he? Which is a bit of a shame, but it was just nice, close racing, a bit of a racing incident potentially, but pointing at all those new tyres, he is going very quickly, but his lap times at the moment aren't quicker than those drivers around him that he's going to be hoping to catch up for, because obviously he's to carve through the drivers first. But look at this, he just catches them straight up, and Drawhorn is the next person who's on his list. He has to wait for a corner, get a good exit. He can get earlier on the power with those grippier tyres. He has the draft assistance. He can be late on the brakes as well, and we're pretty much going to be lining up a move here on Trey Drawhorn. Austin Greatorex has gained about 1.5 seconds ahead of these two drivers. There you go, he just shot through your field as Pointonen looks to the inside, and I think from Trey's perspective it's pretty pointless trying to fight him, although that wasn't stopping him. But look how late on the brakes that Thomas could get on there. I think he did outbrake himself a touch because he ran a little bit closer to the right hand side apex than he was hoping for, but still awesome. Pointonen through, he's into 13th.
Yeah, he is indeed. All he's got to do is work forward from here. Rafael Amorim under yet further pressure from Gavin Halls behind. Not quite within striking distance as of yet. Getting closer to that margin though. Now he's within striking distance. Is he going to send it? That's very late on the brakes. How does he get it slowed down? I will never know. Managed to grab the apex for turn 10. Turn 10A favoured Rafael Amorim, but somehow Gavin Halls is going to hang on around the outside. He's got the superior momentum. Don't use too much curb. Gavin decides to use all the curb and a little bit of grass thereafter. Got very close to the tail end of Rafael Amorim. A very hard-fought battle. Rafael somehow still in front of Gavin Halls, and with 20 minutes of the race remaining, I can only see them getting closer.
I don't know how Gavin Halls is this quick with a ton of bricks in his car, because that's all I can assume that he threw at the brake pedal was a ton of bricks to get that car slocked. It was absolutely awesome, but Amorim holds the position crucially, so however dramatic the potential overtake was, Halls would rather have a simple overtake or a scrappy overtake and have the position, wouldn't he? So Amorim holds on for another day. Jacob Toft 2.2 seconds in the race lead. Amorim, Halls are the top three. Dorrington in 4th, Pies in 5th, but for how much longer, God only knows. 6th position is Ryan Parkins. Jarmo Levo in 7th. Jordan Dyer, which I think is driven very well with that damaged front end, up 5 positions into 8th. Michael Cooper-Smith, he's in 9th. 10th is Leif Peterson as well. So that is your top 10 at the moment. A couple of drivers have been lapped. Simpson, Edward Anderson, Vikinen, Marston, Elliott and Billy Smith. Billy Smith, who was doing so well at the beginning of this race, Jack, but incidents means that he's just not had the rub of the green, or maybe, you know, the rub of the green, maybe he could have helped, shall we say. But he's now down in 28th place, which is pretty good. So hopefully he'll be back fighting strong for Spa.
Yeah, let's hope so. And of course, we can keep our fingers crossed for that. Here is Ryan Parkins still pushing Christopher Pies around this Road Atlanta circuit. So another 2.5 mile or 4.06 kilometre rotation of the circuit completed, and my connection appears to be rather faulty. I'm not sure whether you can hear it on your end, Jacko, but
we can hear you fine, Jack.
Sure what's going on.
We can hear you fine, Jack. Don't worry, but I will take over just in case. You try and sort that stuff out. So yeah, I mean, you may well be forgive me for thinking we're focusing quite a lot on these two drivers, but really they are the closest thing on battling on circuit at the moment. You got Jan Kieskinen as well. This is the fight for the top 15 against Stifle and Matti Navala, who has obviously been a feature on our screens for the majority of this race. Navala has been never shy of getting his elbows out. He's been in the thick of the action for the majority. Unfortunately, he has lost 3 positions from his starting place. The biggest gainer of all of them is a driver who we have featured an awful lot, which is Austin Greatorex, who, by the way, is only 0.08 of a second slower than the driver behind him, Thomas Pointonen, with those new tyres on as well. So that's quite substantial, really, in terms of data, because it means that Pointonen is not catching up as much as he would like. This 3-way battle, Kieskinen, Navala and Stifle, is soon to be, I'm sure, hotting up rather soon. We're going to have to shoot back, because again, these drivers, it's just Pies and Parkins stealing the show here, stealing the spotlight as they're going through the final couple of the corners. They were very close, and as they go into the twisty windy bit of sector 1, again, they've just gapped each other just enough, so they're not really giving each other a headache for now.
No, it seems like they're fairly safe in the positions they are, and my connection issue is really not helping myself here, because they have turned my SDK into an absolute Christmas tree. Apparently every single driver on the grid, all 28, had a crash all at the same time. So their names lit up red, and wondered what had gone on. Yeah, I'm not 100%
We're not
sure
racing
how
NASCAR here.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how they managed it, but they've definitely done it. Here is Christopher Pies. Oh, no, it is Pies, pardon me. Under pressure from Ryan Parkins once again, working their way past a little bit of lap traffic. I think that could have potentially been Danny Jones. And then in towards turn 10 and 10A. Over the bridge we go, or under the bridge I should say, through turn 11 and then down through this final corner of turn 12. It's still Pies leading Ryan Parkins, and for how long this goes on I don't know, because we are very quickly running out of time in this race. Only 15 minutes remaining, and out of all of the time gone and all of the laps turned, Jacob Toft still somehow last time through managed to set an overall fastest sector 3, so there's still time out there.
It's quite sensational, isn't it? Really, Jacob Toft's a 1:17.6. He currently holds the fastest lap, and in fact only 4 drivers have been in the 17s, which, if you remember in qualifying, I think the top 6 or 7 were in the 17s. That is Jacob Toft, Amorim, Gavin Halls and Matt Dorrington, all in the 17s in terms of their best lap times. But if you're talking, lap times that are currently out there being represented, you've got Toft, Amorim, Halls, Dorrington, Pies, and then Levo in the sort of 18s. Oh, and Austin Greatorex, to be fair, in the 18s at the moment. So, a fair spread of drivers. Levo and Jordan is this Levo? No, it's Levo going past Danny Jones, who I think has taken a couple of minutes away from front manning McFly, the band, to try and get involved in the Porsche Club here. I'm sure it's not the same person, but it's the same name, so I'm going to go involved with it. Raphael Amorim. Now, this battle, Jack, it cooled down for a couple of laps, but it's heating back up rather substantially. But again, I have to fight back to Ryan Parkins, because look at this. There's a potential overtake here. Oh, it is going to be an overtake, because it's a spin and contact between Christopher Pies and Ryan Parkins. And Parkins just left his nose on that rear fender going into, is that the final corner? We've seen pain and misery happen before there as well. It's turn 1, actually. Sorry, my apologies. You're right, Jack. And that's a real shame. I said it before, you have to really be ahead of the drivers into the apex of turn 1. There is no margin for error, and that is what can happen.
Yeah, not what we wanted to see at all. I think potentially the networks from across the pond potentially not matching up, of course, with it being an international series. It didn't really match up. Yeah, there wasn't really that much contact to cause that amount of damage between the pair of them. I'm sure if we see it slowed down, and
my apologies, I'm going wrong here.
There isn't really any blame to be apportioned on Chris. I think it's when you're looking on board Chris's car, it's all to go to Ryan Parkins. But so I'm sure if we do get an onboard from Ryan Parkins, we will see there was a fair bit of room between the pair of them. It's sort of hard to see the nose cone of Ryan's car. Gets closer, gets closer, gets closer. To be fair, after watching it in slow motion, he just went into the tail end of him. Unlucky for the pair of them. I'm sure it was nothing malicious between the pair of them. Ryan Parkins tends to be a very, very clean and respectful driver. He's brilliant on and off the circuit, and through the pit lane he goes. I think potentially he's either given himself a drive-through penalty or has been gifted a drive-through penalty by our race stewards. But Rafael Amorim still under pressure from Gavin Halls and Jacob Toft. He's very much eased off now because the lead gap really starting to come down. I say he's eased off, he's still lapping very easily in the 1:18s, but we know Jacob Toft can go so much quicker. He's just eased off because he knows there's no need to take any unnecessary risk, closing up on only 12 minutes of the race remaining now.
Well, you said about easing off. I mean, he's still quicker than these two drivers on that previous lap, and it may be something to do with the fact that he has obviously got that gap, and these two are just fighting amongst themselves. I think in Parkins, he didn't stop, so that is, I think that's a self-given drive-through penalty and a bit of sportsmanship. This is an invitational at the end of the day. It's not about massive prizes or anything like that, and I'm sure Pies and Parkins will have been just beaming from ear to ear, you know, during that race, and hopefully there's no ill feeling and they can watch this back, and they, you know, got plenty of screen time, let's face it, being the closest battles out on circuit. But hopefully they can enjoy watching it back and see the spectacular moves that they were pulling off as well. Andy Marston's had an incident, and we're going to very quickly have a look at it. I think he was pretty much on his own here. Oh, he's breaking sharp into... No, he just stopped before 10A. Now that is because he's being lapped. There's Ryan Parkins through, for instance. That's because he's being lapped. So fair play to Andy Marston, not getting in the way and just accepting that he's going to be overtaken here. Hit the brakes, stop the car, and just get going again when there's clear air.
Yeah, that's all he's got to do. He's just got to wait around for something to happen at this point. There is Rafael Amorim still under pressure from Gavin Halls. He looked to the left, looked to the right, looked back to the left, then looked back to the right. Later on the brakes, gets the position made. Rafael Amorim looks for the cutback. We're going to have another look back. It happened so quickly. He swapped positions so many times. Talk us through, Jacko.
Yeah, so here's Gavin Halls. He looks to the right, then he fakes the left. He goes to the left, then he fakes the right and dives up the inside. And we said he's got a ton of bricks to throw at that brake pedal. Well, he needed every single ounce of it then to try and get the car stopped. And he did it much better than he tried to do the first time. He's got that position made with 11 minutes to go, or 10.5 minutes to go, if you really want to be that pedantic about it. A fantastic move on Rafael Amorim by Gavin Halls, and now Gavin Halls' opportunity, or his mission, is to try and catch up to Jacob Toft. I don't think it's going to happen. It's probably more likely that he's going to hold off Amorim, or have to hold off Amorim, but still, it's thrilling to watch.
Yeah, it is indeed. Of course, Gavin Halls being one of the lead instructors at the Bahrain International Circuit, so he knows what he's doing behind the wheel of a race car, and it's all down to whether he can defend hard enough to fend off the attentions of Rafael Amorim, because he's still sat there. He is within striking distance by the time we get to this chicane, so nose to tail as it stands. Gavin Halls goes to the very extreme left-hand side of the circuit, does what he can in defence, shows Rafael Amorim the outside of 10, and then 10A it will return to the inside, and that's, I think, quite nicely for Gavin Halls, kept him pointing in the right direction, but he does have a bit of damage. He will lose a position to, I think... that it is Matthew Dorrington sat right behind him now. A lapped car managed to unlap himself there, and Matt Dorrington, I'm sure, will work his way by with damage on the front end of Gavin Halls, and I think that is just something we can't avoid, having drivers from all around the world, bearing in mind one's in America and one's in somewhere in the UK, or potentially, with it being Gavin, he could be out in Bahrain as it stands, so from one side of the planet to the other, network issues doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah, well, let's have a quick look at it. There's the overtake, Gavin Halls. From that perspective, let's have a look at that again and slow it
there was no contact
down. Yeah, there was no contact. And if anybody's unfamiliar with iRacing, that's what we call probably, Jack, I think you'll agree with me, netcode, don't you think?
Yeah, I try not to almost say netcode too much. It's almost like swearing in regards to iRacing commentary. But yeah, definitely. When you've got around about 4 feet between yourself and another car, and you still get contact, yeah, definitely netcode.
Well, hopefully, Gavin Halls will watch that back, and I'm sure he probably doesn't think that Amorim, one, did it on purpose, or two, he might not have thought he did it at all, because obviously Gavin Halls may have been aware enough to know that there was a decent enough gap between the two of them, but now looking back, there's the confirmation for everybody's eyes that wasn't really anybody's fault. In fact, they gave each other brilliant amount of racing room. So Halls now has to hold off his teammate Matt Dorrington for the next 8 minutes. I can't believe we're in the last 8 minutes here, Jack. It's absolutely flown by. Luckily, we do get it to do it all again later on. Christopher Pies is back on our screens, but that's because he's fighting with Cooper Smith. Cooper Smith holding on to that position. It was Pies trying to make the overtake coming from behind there. This is the fight for 7th place, which isn't the sentence that Pies wanted to be involved in about half an hour ago, but it's just how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately, as Cooper Smith, well, he's gained a fair few positions. 3 positions gained for him, but Jordan Dyer, who's in 6th place at the moment, he's gained 7. Quite incredible. Fun fact, though, Jack, which I know you can see, being the fact that you have the brilliant timing system that we use. But the top 4 drivers are the only drivers that haven't moved a position, i.e. haven't gained or lost from their respective grid positions. Obviously, they've done lots of swapping and changing, but as they sit at the moment is how they started the race, and they're the only drivers, apart from Thomas Pointerman now, to have that fact.
Yeah, I was going to say, 9 times out of 10, Jacko, I do tend to agree with you. 1, because you know better, and 2, because you tend to be right. But yeah, that time through, just as you started that phrase, literally, as you started your line of commentary, Thomas Poynton had lost out to Austin Greater-X, and
damn you,
Austin Greater-X up into 11th place. Ryan Parkins off the track, and hopefully not destined for retirement, but he is sat in the pit lane at the moment. Here is Tom Slater, sideways, sat stationary in the middle of the road, very well avoided by one of the cars working his way by. Here is Ben Simpson leaving the pit lane and deciding he doesn't want to play any further part in this race. But here is Ryan Parkins, so what caused him to retire? Very typical Porsche incident, all the weight over the rear axle because it's rear-engined. The brakes don't really do anything, whether they were applied or not, but Ryan Parkins returned to the pit lane. The last thing we wanted to see, Thomas Poynton is still pushing forward, and then we get back to the 2 Shark e-bikes sponsored black and orange machines. The lead car being Gavin Halls, the chase car being Matt Dorrington, and they're just sat pushing each other around, and they're having a great little battle here, the final 5 minutes of the race. Why not? Your teammates, it's an international event, let's have a bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. When it's an invitational like this, and your teammates, and you're not going to really disrupt anybody else's fight, because Jarmo Levo is 20 seconds behind Dorrington. Rafael Amorim is 5 odd seconds ahead of Hall, so, why not, like you said. It's, try and put on a show for the sponsors and the team and everything like that. They are actually the closest battle we have out on circuit, with about 5 minutes left. We've got James Hoof and Leif Peterson. About 7 or 8 tenths between each other. You can see visually the gap there. And then we got Danny Jones and Alto as well, with a similar about 6-7 tenth gap between them. So everybody seems to have sort of found their position now. And with the last 5 minutes, we can understand that. And I suppose it gives us an opportunity to, 1, reflect on the race that we've had. And hopefully everybody at home can reflect on the race that we've had as well. But 2, show a driver that we've probably only shown twice this entire race. And that's the race leader, Jacob Toft. He's been in a class of his own, hasn't he, Jack? Really, it's been non-stop, fastest lap pretty much, from start to finish. He had practice, he was quickest. He had qualifying, he was quickest. And in the race, there's been no doubting, he's the quickest.
Yeah, and as much as we want to look at the race leader, because of course they are the fastest car on the circuit, there's no real need to look at our leader. There's nothing going on. He's 10 seconds to the good up at the front, ahead of Rafael Amorim, so no real danger there for Jacob Toft. Great stuff from himself. He's led so far from the lights being extinguished to our 56th minute being completed now. Here is James Huth looking towards Leif Peterson. He has a little look to the inside, shows his nose and decides with 4 minutes of the race remaining, either he's going to bide his time and wait for a more open opportunity, or he's just going to settle for that 10th place. Of course, another position is so easily gained, so he might still be looking forward, trying to get that position, but I think at this stage in the race it's not really worth the risk. If you either force the mistake or you just wait for an opportunity to 100% be available, there's no point going into a position or a potential overtake this late in the race being 50-50. You need to be well and truly confident that you are going to get that position made. And the gap between the pair of them hovering around about 8 tenths of a second. Similar gaps between who have we got? Michael Cooper Smith and Christopher Pays. So I think everybody's just more than happy sitting behind each other at the moment. Gavin Halls and Matt Dorrington doing exactly that.
Apologies, my mic was on mute because I was coughing. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, really. Poynton's got past Greater X, and that was a little battle that I was hoping to keep an eye out on. Poynton is nowhere near Greater X at this point, but Greater X has a slight and a very well-held one as well. Fair play to Greater X. We've seen a lot of drivers, Ryan Parkins included, his teammate, suffer with obviously drifting out wide and going onto the sort of the green stuff and the kitty litter. But Greater X holding it well though, only conceding one position to Poynton.
Yeah, I think when I said earlier on in the stream that Formula Drift do come here, I think a few of them maybe took it a little too literally. They thought, oh, Formula Drift, you say? Let me show you how it's done. And we've seen some very good attempts. We've seen some unfortunate attempts as well go slightly wrong in towards the gravel, but everybody's still continuing without too much of an issue. There is James Huth working his way past a back marker of Danny Jones. But all he has to do now is work his way around to the line. 2 minutes of the race remaining, so depending on where our leader is just crossing the line now, we will see another 2 laps of racing here at Road Atlanta for round 1 of the Porsche Club GB International Sim Racing Challenge. Of course, the first round of a 2-round season, and next week we will be out at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. So I'll look forward to seeing you there, Jacko. But all that's in the future. We've still got another 1 minute and 30 of green flag racing to go. Here is Jarne Kiskinen, still under, not really under that much pressure actually. That is a lapped car behind him. I think that's William Edward Anderson just sat behind. But he is looking forward, trying to make inroads on Joe Stifle in front. 3/4 of a second separating the pair of them. This late on in the race, I don't think there'll be that many position changes.
No, apart from obviously these back markers maybe causing a little bit of an issue, a little bit of aggro potentially, but hopefully they'll all abide to the blue flags and slightly move out of the way. Your last opportunity, however, to give a shout out to your favourite drivers, maybe a driver that you think has driven particularly well, who's entertained you the most, or just who you're here to support. Please do, this is your last opportunity, as I said, drop their name in the chat as well. Please do give them a shout out, because to be honest, it's been thrilling. There's a little bit of a mistake there. I'm not entirely sure who that was by. I think it was one of the back markers. It's the number 20 machine of Jarmo Villakainen, sorry. I think I'm saying that awfully, by the way. I apologise to Jarmo. But yeah, this is the last opportunity to drop their name in the chat. Please do give them a shout out, because I think every single driver deserved it. It's been absolutely sensational. 15 seconds left on the clock. Jacob Tofts, this is going to be the final lap of the race, and I think fairly confident in probably jumping to this man now, because one, he's got about 10 or 11 seconds the good of Rafael Morim, who really has picked up the pace very well, to be fair. But two, everyone else seems to be relatively happy with where they are. As I say that, there's all of a sudden 3 battles that have just gone below 0.3 of a second. One of this is Dorrington and Halls. Unlikely that we'll see a position change here, really, because neither of them want to hit each other off. And then Huth and Peterson as well, as we were watching before. But what a drive it has been from Jacob Tofts. We're going to give him his due. He hasn't been on the broadcast all that much, but I think everybody deserves to see him cross the line as we're coming into the final sector here. It's been sensational from him. Hopefully he can carry some good momentum into Spa-Francorchamps. It's going to be interesting to see if he'll have mastered that circuit as well. But I'm sure he'll know it like the back of his hand, as he clearly knows Road Atlanta. Jacob Tofts takes the checkered flag here at the Porsche Club Sim Racing Invitational. A fantastic drive by Jacob. Rafael Amorim is going to come across the line to take second position. Gavin Halls is a fair way back. Oh, Matthew Dorrington is trying to move on him as well as they go side by side. Get that photo opportunity, lads. Halls is in 3rd place. Dorrington is in 4th.
Yeah, the gap at the line, 0.02 of a second between the pair of them. Jarmo Levo working his way through turns 10 and 10A. Under the bridge we go for turn 11, and then down the hill through the final corner of turn 12 for the final time. Jarmo Levo, the top of the Finnish drivers, finishes in 5th place, and then we get a raft of American drivers. Jordan Dyer and Michael Cooper-Smith follow suit 6th and 7th. Then it's Christopher Pays just 1.4 seconds back, and Leif Peterson in 9th, and James Huth rounds out your top 10. There is Thomas Pointonen after what showed to be a very, very, I think, opportunistic race. I think it's the race of what could have been for Thomas Pointonen, and sadly, it didn't go his way.
Yeah, I mean, that pit stop really hurt him, didn't it? Whether or not he forgot to untick the tyre change option is a potential sort of sticking point that maybe he had, or whether or not he just thought the tactic was the right thing. I doubt he'll be doing it at Spa, put it that way. He'll have learned from his mistake. Because realistically, he was on for fighting for top 5, wasn't he? You know, the top 3 had gotten away somewhat, but you know, the fight for top 5 was really heating up as Matty Navarro comes into the pits. I think this is because a lot of drivers have potentially been lapped now. So I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll jump to a lovely scenic cam and we'll bring up the race results, because I believe we can do that, which means everybody has finished the race. Jack, take us through them.
Jacob Toft, our eventual winner here from Road Atlanta for round 1 of the Porsche Club GB International Sim Racing Challenge. That's definitely a mouthful. Put my teeth back in. Jacob Toft, like I say, topped the order here, over 10.5 seconds clear of Raphael Amorim. Then we get back to Gavin Halls rounding out your podium with Matt Dorrington alongside. You can see 0.02 of a second separating the pair of them, with Jarmo Levo rounding out your top 10. Then it's Jordan Dyer and Michael Cooper-Smith ahead of Christopher Pace, Leif Peterson, James Huth, Thomas Pointonen, Austin Greatorex, Joseph Stifel, or Joe Stifel, I should say, ahead of Jarne Kiskinen. Then we have Matti Navala, Trey Drawthorne, and Stuart Clark. And Mark Bowe rounds out your top 18 here today. And then the final 10 or so will be made up of Tom Slater, Jyrki Alto, Danny Jones, William Anderson, Jarmo Vulkanen, ahead of Andy Marston, Ryan Parkins, Ben Simpson, Johnny Elia, and Billy Smith. I think the bottom 4, they're all retirees from the race.
They were indeed, and hopefully a couple of drivers may be able to come and have a chat with us. I'm not entirely sure, but I think probably what we'll do, Jack, is just in case they do want to come and have a chat with us, is we'll probably sort of reflect on what we've seen so far. Obviously, Jacob Toft was by far and away the leader and probably the best driver on the circuit. I don't think anybody can really deny that with the way he won it. Raphael Amorim, now he had a brilliant battle with Gavin Halls for the majority, didn't he? And it's a shame that that netcode sort of interrupted it, isn't it, really? And obviously that's the same could be said for Pies and Parkins. They really sort of shone through to give us a brilliant battle between those 4 drivers, albeit 2 different battles. But then obviously everybody else has just been so close as well. They've been chopping and changing and mistakes here and there. It's just been a bit of an honour to be here witnessing these drivers rag this 911 car around the circuit.
Yeah, it just shows that the drivers with the seat time behind the wheel of these Porsches, they just know exactly what they're doing. And Jacob Toft, like I mentioned, the Porsche Club GB Sim Racing Championship champion of Season 3. So he's really got the bit between his teeth. Gavin Halls, he's got the sim experience. He's got the real life experience being a chief instructor at the Bahrain circuit. He knows exactly what he's doing. So does Matt Dorrington, runs his own team. I think it's Fury Sim Sport, sponsored by Midas Simulation, his own business, so he knows exactly what he's doing behind the wheel as well. Unfortunately, we didn't see Ryan Parkins take to the checkered flag, but he definitely knows what he's doing. He's the Porsche Club GB Sim Racing Championship champion from Season 1. And then Austin Greatorex, a decent performance from him. We've seen a hell of a lot better, but to cross the line in 12th place after not a great qualifying, to be fair, I take my hat off to him. Working his way through a busy grid, he really did make it work. I was hoping we'd have Gavin Halls in for an interview, but we can't quite grab him in. And at this point, normally we would be rattling through the interviews, but as nobody's seen to come and join us, I don't know. I wonder what. Maybe we smell funny. I don't know, but nobody's coming to say hello. So I think we're bringing the stream to a close, Jacko.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, isn't it? But yeah, I tell you what, Jack, you keep an eye on the Discord whilst we sort of go through the final bits and pieces. What have you been watching today then? Porsche Club GB, Porsche Club International Sim Racing Challenge. It's been sensational action out there on the circuit. I want to give a big thanks to everybody who's tuned in to watch this. There's been a fair number of you, so a big thank you to you guys. for sharing it as well, for commenting, liking, getting involved. Any new subscribers who may have jumped into Simracersworld, or any followers for the Porsche Club GB Facebook page or anything like that. It's been a brilliant honour to have you along. Congratulations to all the drivers involved as well. I think it's safe to say, I can speak for everyone watching and me and Jack, to say they provided us with some brilliant drama throughout the entirety of the last 60 minutes. I can't wait for round 2 at Spa next week. So if you are interested in tuning in for that, then by all means, all you have to do is hit the subscribe or hit the follow button, or indeed just keep an eye on, or keep a mental note, at 5 o'clock BST, we're going to be live for Spa, or 5:30 even, we're going to be live for Spa for Porsche Club International Sim Racing Challenge round 2. There are already 2 rounds, so don't miss it. Jack, have we got anybody in for an interview, or should we say goodbye?
We do not. So unfortunately, we won't have anybody in for an interview. But I've got to say, once again, it's been a pleasure to commentate alongside you, Jacko, and I'll let you close out the stream.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Well done to the drivers, and we'll see you next week, 5:30 British Summertime. Good night.